insistence of a Republican minority leader.
So your opposition encouraged
Yeah,
folks.
he insisted on that. He was from Arizona. I forget his name too. I'll tell you that in a minute.
Now that reminds me, Barry said, he quoted Gingrich as saying that if Jim Wright survives this attack, he's going to go down as one of the best speakers, in history. It sounds like Barry said that he was a strategist and that he had nothing personal against you. But you're the person, That's when people say there's nothing personal about it. I just want to deprive you of your your work and smear you and. So even your opponents seem to fall in favor of some of the work that you're doing.
I got off the subject, really. I'm sorry. I got carried away talking about that little book, Reflection of the Public Man. I thought the things that were in the book were really important and good and worthwhile. That's what I wouldn't publish it. Instead of going to a New York publisher and getting royalties from the sale of books nationally, like I had, and some of the other books, I went to a local publisher in Fort Worth, and there were two of them who bid for it. And the one who won tells me that he made money on the book, even though he gave me a very little percent of a very small price of each book. But he's still in town. You can talk to him if you want to talk to him. But that was, I don't know, I'm not going to make a comment about Gingrich on this. Seriously. But I have some other books you may have. Are you aware of a book called Worth It All?
What is it?
Worth It All. Worth It All.
Oh, what's?
Worth It All.
What's it? Worth It All. Worth It All. Yes.
Worth It All.
Yeah, sorry to bring up Gingrich. I don't really revel in any kind of controversy, but I do like to know how it is that when I'm studying somebody, I like to see how they've dealt with things and figure out how I can deal with my own life. And I see that you dealt with that in a way that I thought was constructive. Even Barry in that interview, he says, well, he's not gone to Fort Worth to be defeated. He's not. Fortunately, he's gone on and he says that he's come here to live, not to die. Come to Fort Worth to live. That reminds me of Reflections of a Public Man. You said that war was fought not you don't die for your country, you try to live for your country, and that's what you've done since resigning.
I've enjoyed it. This is well, in fact, one of the people who I'll give you a copy of his speech. I have a copy of his speech. Pete Garrett, who succeeded me in Congress and served there for, I think, 6 years, maybe less, and then became Secretary of the Army. Pete wrote a speech about me that he made at the Exchange Club recently, and if you get your copy of that, he seems to be moved by the fact that I'm going to come back to Fort Worth instead of staying in Washington and getting involved in lobbying. I wasn't interested in lobbying. I want to be able to.
Yeah, I get the impression that once you were, your position was resigned there, that you felt like this is a place that I've completed my work with, and I don't need to be here anymore.
Yeah.
But when you and your congressman, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought you said that you were there maybe up to 9 months out of the year.
9 months out of the year is right, and bearing in mind that that was written shortly after I had come to Congress. I'd been there for 10 years or less, you see. And that's what happened, yeah. In the early days, those days, Congress would be in session, now there wouldn't be any weekends at home. The Congress would be in session, steady session, from January when it went in until perhaps September. And then it was adjourned, and adjourned for the year. And you go home for the last 3 months or 4 months of your year. But there was no paid trip home.
You have to go a Greyhound bus?
Yeah, pay as you say, drive, whatever, but you wouldn't get home and back on the weekend very well. So members stayed there pretty much. We put our kids in school in Texas in the fall, and at midterm we would transfer
January
up to Washington now, several miles. The courses didn't always mesh. It wasn't a really good way to educate your kids.
Well, those are things that interest me that aren't in the books. That just how does life manage when you do all these things?
First off, we rented. I couldn't believe that anything was worth the money they charged in Washington to buy a house.
Oh yeah, we looked around once, my dad, and it was. So I remember this was in the early '90s. It's $200,000 for a pretty small-looking place.
Yeah.
And later on, he went ahead and bought something here. It seems like a mansion.
We had a home in Weatherford when I was first elected, and kept that as our residence. We lived here and worked in Washington, but lived here.
And you had to drop those papers to vote in the last year.
But there were advantages and disadvantages. Members became better acquainted with one another when they lived there the year round and didn't have any paid trip home except at Easter time. One time at Easter and back, just for the weekend, and maybe a week, whatever. But there wasn't such thing as going home for the weekend, going home and coming back for the so-called Tuesday, Thursday Club. It's a name that was invented by critics, and well so, because once the annual session continued around the clock, around the calendar, you know, we didn't adjourn the Congress until sometime in December. And you had to go home if you were going to get home and see your constituents and report to them at all. I wrote a weekly newsletter. when I was first in Congress. And did a weekly television interview and sent them home and did not try to go home. As my kids grew up a little bit, and the youngest one was able to swim and good enough at swimming, I put her in the swimming pool. That's always been my idea of a really wonderful thing. And we would invite other kids, Republicans, children, and other members' children, to come and swim in our swimming pool with us, have a little swimming party. That kind of thing went on all the time. Members had parties and went to see one another, visited in one another's homes, and did things like that. You know, hold on, better look fighting with one another. Then later on, when they did begin to pay for your trip back home, as often as you went. One full year, my wife, now deceased, my first wife, didn't like the idea of moving the kids back and forth. And so she said, well, they had redistricted and put Polk County out of our district. So we had to sell our home over there and buy one in Fort Worth. And she wanted to stay there the whole year. But I kept myself broke trying to get home on weekends if I ever had my own pocket. You know, I didn't have all that money. But then after that, we decided we'd just put them in school in Washington or in Virginia, in nearby Northern Virginia, year-round. And that's what happened. But most of my tenure there.
Did they like school better in one place or the other? Or did they like both in different ways?
I think kids like school wherever they got friends. Where they got friends.
And where they got friends?
Yeah. And I think that's my view of it. I believe that's the way they were.
My niece went up to near there in Maryland, and she liked it just fine. And then she came down here, and she was in high school at the time. So I avoided that. I dropped out of school when I was in high school, and then later I got into college, another route. And I instead of switching over there, we just pulled me out of school.
Yeah. My son, the eldest of my children, was, I think he was in the 5th grade when we went to college. And he came back to Texas and lived with my sister for his senior year in high school, in the old family home, my parents' home. And he was the only one who did that. The rest of them liked it up there, I think, fine. And he did most of his shooting, about half and half.
I had a question about, well, by the way, whenever you need to move on, that's fine. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk with you.
Come on way up here and talk and get information. Go ahead.
Well, I noticed that you said one of your regrets during the lecture, the first lecture. I have to kind of keep an eye on this. I think it eats up a lot of space on there, but you said one of your regrets that you couldn't accomplish during being speaker was that you wanted education, avenues to higher learning to be more accessible. And I was wondering what you think of this higher learning now that the advent of the internet has occurred in the 90s and online learning is starting to rise up a little. That seems to make learning more accessible to everybody, but
Yeah, it is more accessible.
is that in line with some of the vision that you had, or do you think
Not
that's...
really, no. I have to confess that it wasn't one of my initiatives. It was someone else's. I don't get any credit for that at all. But I do believe that learning ought to be more accessible and less expensive.
It's ballooned, the price, since I've been got my bachelor's, and the online learning tuition is a lot lower because of less overhead.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that there's some spotty work that's being done, and in some respects, I hope that it gets more formalized.
James, I think there may be an advantage to having some personal contact with professors and the ability to ask questions that you can't get online. But I work from the advent of online teaching. It opens it up, as you say, to people who otherwise, many of them wouldn't have made it at all.
Well, like I said, when I'm learning about someone like you, I'm trying to strengthen my own weaknesses, to look at what it is that you've done successfully, or that you've been able to accomplish, and not just in work but in character, and then also some of the weaknesses of you or anyone else, and then figure out how that's compatible with me. And I think that online, I would just see people on the forums, all they're required to do is post a couple things, and you couldn't even hardly tell these are people or computers or what.
Yeah, you lose the personal touch, no question about it, but if it permits any number of students otherwise unable to get an education to gain it, I think it's wonderful. I do believe, though, that you need a certain amount of give and take to get it, be able to ask questions as you're doing to me right now. And if not, you're going to have a lot of questions in your mind that aren't answered.
Well, here's a kind of a controversial question. What about illegal immigrants enrolled in universities? Some people support the DREAM Act to let somebody, if they've gone through college and they get a degree and they're illegal all that time, to let them kind of be integrated. What do you think about education as it is in line with that?
I think that people who are brought here by their parents as children don't have any say about it. We can't hold them guilty for being illegal, But here's what you can do. You can set out criteria that they have to fulfill in order to qualify for citizenship, and then make them full-fledged citizens.
And do you think that should be set out through the education program, or outside of it?
Part of it.
Yeah, it discourages me because I was a substitute. I've been a substitute for years before going to college level, and some schools would have a sign on the door saying you can't enroll here if you don't have citizenship. If you don't have an ID. I don't even think that's the law. From what I understand, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of illegals being able to go to school.
Yeah.
In '79 or something.
Yeah, but I would agree with that. I would, maybe some states have laws that say the state universities cannot admit people who are not citizens or citizens. I think that's foolish, because there are a lot of people who are here legally, who are not citizens. I mean, people who are invited. I don't know. I would lean in the direction of making it easier for people to get education, whoever they are.
And those people can contribute to the economy.
Yeah.
The more they learn, the more, like Horace Mann says, the more they learn, they'll get involved.
Precisely. I think so, absolutely.
There's some things that I have to say here. Well, one thing about Worth et al. At the beginning, there's a Fort Worth Star-Telegram interview that you gave early this year. I think May of this year. Says Jim Wright says he probably shouldn't have retired, and that you said you should have stuck it out. And
I don't remember saying that. No, I don't recall saying that. I think that you read an article.
I think it said that that you believe that if you had just stayed there, it may have been acrimonious, but at least
No, look, here. No. I know what you said. I said, I think that I may have been miscalculated. Now, here's where I miscalculated, and I did so. Indeed, when I retired from college, gave up speakership, I did so as a propitiation for the ill will that existed between the parties and the Congress. And I did so saying, I said, let me make a bargain with you. Let me give you back this job you gave to me as a propitiation.
propitiation.
For this season of ill will, and that there be an end to it.
And it didn't end.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that maybe that was a miscalculation, that
On my part.
your goal was to help harmony be restored.
I thought, yeah, exactly. I thought, and perhaps irrationally, I thought that my giving back the job at the speakership, which is your life's goal, for God's sake, if you're going to conduct, would be with so shock and shame the membership that they would buy into that and would say, yes, that's right. There's been too much of this ill will.
But instead they see it more like Nixon resigning, perhaps.
There was my, yeah, and I miscalculated grossly.
Well, so that explains, from Worth et al. In the preface, you say to hold on to that post would have only prolonged the acrimony and divisiveness that plagued the government.
Yeah.
I'd done all that I could. And, I wanted to be sure that was consistent with what you're saying recently.
Yeah.
So really it is.
No, I'm not saying I should have stayed there. I had a chance to go back to the meeting here locally that was attended by my friend, who you mentioned earlier, Bob Burnham, and others wanting me to run for my vacated position after I had vacated it, to run, and nobody's filed for it in a long time, and they ran a poll in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. How many of them said they would support me if I ran to replace myself? It was a very big.
I think you said 76%.
Yeah, 70-some odd percent, and and a majority, a solid majority of Republicans said they would vote for me.
That reminds me of LBJ talking and saying that you were running against an opponent named Unopposed. They said you're the biggest opposition you had. Something like you had 92% in favor of you at the time. So 8% opposition, I guess.
But that I had I'd made a deal. I was going to stick with it, and I was disappointed that Congress didn't buy into it and live up to the end that I thought I had offered. That's all right. I'm not disappointed about not being in Congress. Be safe. I get around going back again. Maybe I could get going back to speakership again. I don't think so. I don't.
Well, I saw somebody talk to you, I think when you published The Flying Circus, about 2003. There's a little book party, and somebody, government official, says, "We need you back." And you said, "Been there, done that."
Yeah.
And that made me wonder, could you just come back if you decided to go back in government?
Not at this age, I wouldn't want to. No, I wouldn't want to do that.
Well, even if you did want to, though, could you just mount a campaign to go back and be in Congress?
No, I wouldn't want to do that.
There's nothing illegal about it, though.
No.
When you resign, you don't say, "Well, I'll never come back to government." But that would just be reliving a part of your life that doesn't need to be relived.
Exactly.
It's kind of like going back to high school, I guess.
Yeah. In a way.
I had a naive question, and I think when people write biographies on speakers, I saw a speaker, Rayburn, and it said that his real aim was to be vice president around the time of Truman, I think, and that he wasn't able to achieve that, and he just settled with being speaker. Did you ever have an aim to go forward beyond Speaker of the House? John Barry says that you wanted to make it into an equal counterpart to the executive. Did you wish to transform it, or ever to use it as Gingrich might, to go further in another area?
I don't remember what, if anything, I may have said to give that impression to John Barry, but in a sense I did want to make it into a position of respect and influence that would be more or less like it had been in Mr. Reagan's time. I respected Mr. Raymond as I did few people. He was tops in that book.
By the way, in your first lecture that I saw, somebody asked which was, I think they were saying which was your favorite of the 8 presidents you worked with. You went through all of them. You skipped Nixon, but I know that you have good things to say about Nixon's patriotism. And then at the end you said, but it must have been Rayburn. You answered the question by saying it was Rayburn, which really shows how much you respected Rayburn.
Well, he was a hero of mine. Yeah. I admired and trusted and liked him very much. And he treated me very well.
I heard he was pretty quiet and reserved as far as he didn't let people close to him until he really wanted them to be. And so if he let you close to him, it meant something.
I think that's true. But he did let members of the Texas group close to him. I think he felt some sense of responsibility for some of us, and would frequently have us go to dinner with him in the evening. Just male dinner, just men folks. But I think he was more comfortable that way, just talking to men. And sometimes there was a little room there in the Capitol under the House chamber beneath if you know where the House chamber is, behind the House chamber is an area where people may come in and stand and wait to see a member. And then underneath that, on the floor down below, separated only by the elevators from the Speaker's private office, is a room that they call the, what was the name for it? Yeah. But it was Rayburn's private room to go to after the session.
And is that where they now call Rayburn, the Rayburn Building?
No, that's
different.
That's different, yes. It's in the Rayburn Building. No, the Rayburn Building is an office building for offices of members of Congress to have their private offices and then come over to the gallery. This is in the Capitol. And they called it, it was on the tip of my tongue, name for it.
It's funny you said that you were worried that you wouldn't remember. You said, I'll tell you what I remember, but you have a very clear memory about a lot of things.
Thank you, but I must confess, my memory for names of people, names of places, this name of this room, it was a clever name. It's not as good as it used to be. These things just don't come back to me because I haven't had them in my conversation day after day. And this room, but anyway, he would invite you personally. You didn't go in there unless you
Not everybody could go there.
After he invites you in for a drink.
Was that where President Truman was when they called him and told him that
Precisely.
You need to come here?
Yeah, precisely. That was the thing. Raymond, it was his private room to have a drink with him. He'd have bourbon and branch water.
And he was a bachelor, wasn't he? So he had
been married briefly early in his career. His wife and he separated. She was the sister of another member of Congress, a member from Madden. I forget which. Her brother served with Rayburn for a time in Congress, and then he became a judge. Anyway, she, after they were divorced, she went back and worked as Neiman Marcus in Dallas. They were in the office somehow. I never knew her. I never knew Rayburn in those years when he was married. He wasn't married very long. Probably, I may have been a child when he was married. I don't know. But then, anyhow, he was a confirmed bachelor. And he would invite a few of us, maybe 4 or 5 of us at the most, at dinner, Johnny Rayburn. We'd go out to dinner and sit down and talk and read it. And then he would take the So your car, wherever your car was, is the capital, wherever you put it. And wives, you'd call your wife, of course, if you had any good manners and tell her you were with the speaker. But an invitation by Sam Laban was more like a summons.
Well, that's how we feel today, just by the way. My wife hugged me before I came here. She wanted to wish me well, because it's an honor to come here to see you.
God bless you, thank you.
She's excited about it as I am. The one thing I wanted to ask about the Reagan years is the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. Did that add to a spike in the homeless population in Washington, D.C.? Because when I lived there were homeless all around. You must have noticed that all around you when you were there. This is the late 80s. Were homeless always in Washington throughout the 80s or in the 70s?
Yeah. I expect so. I expect they were.
And this was, this from what I understand, that omnibus budget, it organized things to where there wasn't maybe the same type of funds dedicated to some of the medical care or psychiatric care for some people as there had been.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe I'm not understanding it well, but
Omnibus budget, huh?
in 1980, I think. And I think some of that was Reagan's program that you maybe you weren't in favor of.
He doesn't have his hearing aids today. We forgot them. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
speak up.
Okay. So in the early 80s, some of the program that some of the cuts that Reagan wanted to make, did they affect psychiatric care for people that may have maybe those funds were withdrawn and there was maybe a bigger spike in the homeless?
I made a nice study of those cuts, and God knows I have a copy here. Some things that came out of that.
This is something that I taught in my class, and I had some students that got upset with me. 3 students were upset that I was suggesting that Reagan's policies pulled funds away from psychiatric care, that they caused some underprivileged people to have challenges in their their programs.
They did indeed.
Absolutely.
And they stopped the class and started challenging me.
Weird.
And I said that I saw a documentary where there were a lot of people that came to protest to Washington, D.C., and that these people were really on the edge of homelessness. And having lived there in '89 and so forth, you would see homeless people right in front of the White House, all camped out, all on the street, maybe 3 per block. And I suggested, well, I think that happened because, people protesting, and they said, no, either they said there's always been homelessness, or it's not Reagan. And now, I mean, that's part of Wright's work here.
Mm-hmm. They had one group sitting on the side of the Capitol that kept coming to Mr. Wright about the homeless and the handicapped. And,
They were lobbyists or
what was that fellow's name? He was a champion.
special interests.
Mm-hmm. And he would have them in the office and listen to them.
Did you work with Wright there? Oh, you've always worked here.
Mm-hmm.
But you did you work with him back then? Did you work?
I did since 1980.
Okay, so you're aware of all those things. It's really nice to know.
The amendment to the budget that Reagan offered was That's a copy of it. The amendment to the budget.
Of the Thrifty Food Plan. That's kind of like a WIC program, or?
Listen, you just look through there, you'll see a jillion different things that just nobody really was voting on when he finally came down to voting on the damn thing.
So these are suggestions that
No, they're not suggestions, they were part of an amendment that passed and cut the heart out of a number of programs.
That brings me to also talking about Nixon, connection between Nixon, Reagan, and Bush, the younger, George W. Riddlesberger, is that the teacher's name here?
Yeah, it is.
One of his books, The Balance of Power, the AP version of Balance, that's what they call it, speaks of presidential signing. I forget what he called that, the signing on signing off on stipulations or providing adding stipulations to acts and saying, well, I'm signing off on this, signing statements. Is that a concern that you've noticed? It says that it started with Reagan signing, having these signing statements.
Yeah.
Did he whittle down things that way? As much?
This amendment, there never has been before or since a disorganized and multifaceted set of amendments offered as one amendment in the history of Congress, as happened in this occasion right here. Look at this page. I mean, that was part of the amendment offered on the House floor.
So you're supposed to vote on all this, if you're going to accept it or not in one vote.
One vote.
And you have all this these other pressures going on that if you...
I don't know how many copies are extant today of this amendment, but look.
How much time did you have to review that before you voted?
That's 3 days debate, two or 3 days of debate.
Is that something that I could document,
Yes.
photograph, and
Yes.
review?
Yep.
Well, I can do that with my iPad. I take pictures and then look at them later. You know, look at the whole document.
Let me tell you here, just a moment. Right in here, this may be...
Looks like I came to the right person because, well, you know, you're not going to relive the same class again, but the students... one of them actually plagiarized her essay, and the other one didn't show up for the final, and she failed the class. And then the last one actually was doing good in the class, but I think they really felt at odds with some of the conclusions that I came to. Well, especially with Reagan, but any other thing, you know. So sometimes your instinct tells you more than what a textbook might.
Mm-hmm.
And
if this is something that I wrote, I believe that it is, yes.
That's one of the reasons that I trust Mr. Wright here, because he's really in line with a lot of things that I either read as a footnote or you know, some of the instincts that I had as
Can
study.
you read that to me, the headline?
Remarks of Congressman Jim Wright, the Forum Club of Houston, for release Thursday, July 2nd. 205 years ago this Saturday, 55 representatives of the American colonists signed a document which set a new nation in being. So that must have been, 83, 82?
Yeah, maybe so. This, I think, I put together to give answers to questions about this particular thing here. I don't know that it is. And if you have space to make copies of those various pages, you're welcome to do so, but that's the only copy I have of that.
Yeah, I can just take pictures. The only thing is I'm doing so much for the interview, I'm not sure that I'll have any space. I want to make sure to get focus on you more than anything. But actually, I could even just hold it up to the camera on it. But
This would be, and you can pull it off of the
well, I'll do that later if that's all right.
thing. Okay.
Would I be able to visit another time to take some of these pictures?
I don't know that there is another copy of that. There may be.
Says,
There ought to be, but
we set out in the American experiment to expand the aristocracy, to open its ranks to all who might aspire. That reminds me of something. I think that's something that I read in the Reflections of a Public Man about expanding the aristocracy, letting everybody be noble, be kings in a way.
yeah.
In the vernacular, it's been our goal to create a society in which everybody can have a piece of the action. And I haven't got to the part where you're referring to this document, but the sweeping document repeals at least 20 laws. Some of these repealers, its nominal authors, confessed in debate to be unaware. It repeals major sections of at least 50 other laws and makes changes in some 250 government programs. So it's supposed to be an amendment to one bill, but it's supposed to be repealing everything. That's kind of...
It's an amendment to the annual budget.
Well, I'll be interested in coming back to get the photos of that, because that really gets me started. And that reminds me of the impoundment that you were talking about that Nixon did, and balance of power, impounding funds and stripping programs of their funding. So this is really the same strategy, just pulling out the heart of everything.
Yeah.
Do you see that still? Do you keep up with legislation that's going on now?
No, not daily, not at all. I cannot read a newspaper, for example, because of my eyes, and it would just be impossible for me to keep up and stay abreast of everything that's going on in Congress. I don't pretend to.
Yeah, even as a congressman, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, very hard, yeah.
Do you, how frustrating is this macular degeneration? Do you?
Well,
That's the cycle of life.
I have accommodated myself to it. I just have to be happy what the heck. You run around being unhappy and miserable because of what you can't read.
Yeah.
You do the best you can.
My grandma had a special thing sent to her from the government. It was a radio that would read BBC broadcasts and other things, but she didn't even listen to it. She wasn't interested. There's a lot of things now that can help, but I guess, like I said, with legislation, how interested are you, once you're outside of the government?
Well, you can spend your whole day trying to be fully abreast of everything that's going on and listen to the best of the newscasts and do nothing else.
There's other things in life, isn't there?
Yeah.
That Reflections of a Public Man seems to focus on some of that. You're talking to Congressman when you said that's what it was assembled for, to kind of give people some balance. And I like the way that you and your congressman says that, well, congressmen are humans, and that they're trying to do the best that they can. That their interest is in doing something good for their constituents.
And I think most of them are when they push through the Congress. They were surely before. Now this is another pet peeve of mine. Before the Supreme Court's ruling 3, 4, and 5 years ago, whatever it was, that eliminated any effort to control the manner in which campaign funds are raised and expended. And I think that's terrible. Equating, for example, money given by a corporation to free speech. I mean, it's free speech. Buy you some time on TV, but it's darn sure isn't free. and a corporation is not an individual. It's made up of a lot of stockholders. I personally own some stock in some corporations, but they don't necessarily speak for me, you know. That's not free speech. Who decides? Some official of that corporation decides to give $10,000 to some political candidate.
Well, he's not going to speak against them outside of their interests.
Yeah. And I think it is very harmful to the system that what has happened, and that corporate contributors are as able as they are to control candidates and put up money to win elections when their candidate may not have won without that money.
Well, I haven't looked into the YouTube videos that you have, but there's some videos of the Jim Wright Symposium, and I see that there's the Congressman, Kay Granger was there, other people that throughout the years have been there. Do you solicit their participation, or is that...
Yeah. You spoke one about Jim Littlesburger. He and I sit down together usually and decide whom we would like to have as a program this coming year, and then one of us will call or write that individual or those individuals and invite them. That's how it works. And he is probably as influential as I, though it bears my name, and who gets invited. I think sometimes he has suggested names that had not occurred to me that come along and we'd be person to have, and that person comes. Last January it was, it wasn't January, it was November. But in November, when we had the Chancellor of Texas A&M,
I think so.
November 30th, I believe. That was Jim Littlesburger's idea. It was a good one.
He was really good.
I thought he made a fine speech.
Well, I'm going to have to look at those. There's so much here that I think, well, here's something interesting I want to pursue later. Well, just a few more questions that, general questions, because I know you want to get on with things, but what served as your biggest source of pride since you resigned from Congress?
Say that again, please.
What served as your biggest source of pride? What's given you the most pride since you left Congress?
Pride in my service.
Even if it's personal, even if it's like, I heard that your grandkids, being able to spend time.
Oh, well, sure, spend time with grandchildren, you bet. That's great. And I cherish that opportunity. I didn't understand what you mean. What am I most proud of having done while in Congress?
Or after?
After. Oh, afterward. Two things.
Well, that would also be an interesting question, but
Yeah,
I'd have
I
to...
would say two things after leaving Congress. Being involved here at the university teaching and having available papers and so forth. That's one, and the other is writing the series of editorial commentaries that I wrote every week for 13 years, I think.
Oh, I didn't know it was that many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have more pride in that than you do the books that you put out?
No,
About the same?
No, I wouldn't say that. No, I think most of all, now, here's an insider's view of writing books and selling them to publishers. The publisher always gives the book a name. You don't even have a choice. The author doesn't have a choice. He doesn't get to name the book. The publisher names the book. It came as a surprise to me. It may come as a surprise to you. But I wanted to call Worth It All, and I wanted to call it My War for Peace.
Worth It All.
My
War for Peace. Well, Nixon said that. That's interesting that you bring it. Nixon, in his resignation speech, emphasizes how he was trying to promote peace in the world. Now, I feel more favorable to your application of that, saying that it was a war for peace, because you were called upon by Reagan to get involved. It wasn't even you who initiated all of that. Now Nixon, though, was the one pressing on his own, but he wanted to make it sound like he was really a paragon of peace.
Well, I'm going to give him credit for the raids he went to China. He did it of his own volition, and quietly, it was a surprise to everybody else. Surprise to all of us in Congress. We didn't know where he was. He was over in China. And he opened the door that had been shut for, I guess, a generation.
But as far as you're concerned, no one else would have really done the work that you were doing unless you took it on.
That's right.
And there would have things would have devolved. There's no question about that, right? So
that's true.
you can really make a case about it being a war for peace.
Yeah, that's I'm proudest of having made a peaceful settlement in Central America and stopped the gunfire. Now it's kind of new, motivated primarily, I think, by drug
Cartels.
people. A new thing in China, but I've been trying to while that was going on, and I made peace. I helped in the making of peace in Central America, and I helped in the end of the Cold War with Russia. I had written a newsletter, Christmas time, 1958. in which I said there's no room in the department store aisles for another customer, no room in the streets for another automobile, and no room in our hearts for another thought, maybe. And I said, a letter to Ivan. Have you read that? Are you familiar with that?
The letter to
Ivan.
I saw that somewhere where you were speaking to a kind of a theoretical person.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Well, let's see here. Looks like I got some of this and I didn't get the other, but I got this other thing recording. Hopefully that works.
Mm-hmm. I'm proud of those things, and of having I received several hundred letters from average people in the Soviet Union in response to a television appeal that I made over there. And there's a copy of that television appeal here at CCU if you ever wanted to see it. It was the first time they had not only had not invited, but had not allowed. They had not allowed any agent of our government to speak.
And was that was during your when you were speaker, wasn't it? I have read more about controversy with you being involved with Nicaragua than I haven't read that there was controversy related to you going to the Soviet Union. Did you experience that?
No domestic controversy at all. The president and Gorbachev had been engaged in a series of meetings in an effort to chisel down the things that was causing all this problem. We were spending an extraordinary amount of money on weapons of mass destruction because we were fearful of what the Soviets would do to us if we did not. And obviously they were spending an enormous percent of their budget every year on weapons of mass destruction.
The impression I got is they ran out of money before we did. Their economy was more problematic.
It may be true, and it may have motivated them to have moved in this direction, but there had to be we were spending a heap of money, and thank God we did. You both completely, but we had every bit as much interest as they in making peace, I should think, and they Donville ought to have had an interest in it. And when I was invited by Gorbachev to bring a delegation from the Congress, House and Senate, Republicans and Democrats, to Moscow, bring a delegation. It was up to me to make up the delegation. I called in the Republican leader and asked him to pick out so many people and called in and we picked out Democrats and the Senate picked out people. We had a delegation over there and the Gorbachev invited us into the Kremlin to meet with some of their leaders, and I handed him a copy of this letter I had written, I guess 19 years earlier, this letter to Mexican Ivan. And he, after that meeting was over, I was back in my room at the hotel and got a phone call from Gorbachev. And he had read the letter and his best translators working with him, and with him wanted me to go on TV and talk to the Russian people.
So he gave you the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I called the State Department and